Africa as a continent is at the crossroads of deciding its future. With more than half of its people without access to mains power and still relying on charcoal and other harmful cooking fuels, Africa's energy future, divided between fossil fuels and renewables, is up for grabs. As nations discuss the climate crisis at the UN's mid-year negotiations in Bonn, Germany, Africa is a key battleground in the fight against dependence on fossil fuels, with global stakes on the line. Africa is home to 17% of the world's population, but it produces less than 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions and only 0.5% of historic emissions. The continent produces less than 1 ton of CO2 per person, compared to 7 in Europe or China and more than 15 in the United States. However, as the continent develops, it could follow 2 different paths. It has the opportunity to become a clean energy pioneer, with decentralized renewables powering a more inclusive society and a cleaner economy, or it can become a huge polluter with stranded assets and economic instability. It's in Africa's interest to follow the renewable path, not just as a global role model, but climate change is a major danger for the continent, particularly the ever-increasing issue of climate-related migration. Across Africa, where practically all agriculture is rain-fed, will be forced to flee their homes as climate consequences worsen. In wealthier countries, this is mostly viewed as a security issue. However, this is a humanitarian calamity in which people are already losing their lives, their homes, and their means of subsistence. However, the transition to sustainability is already being strained. As if Africa wasn't in a tough enough position coming out of years of colonialism and exploitation, the war in Ukraine is prompting European nations to promote non-renewable development across the continent. Europe is effectively pressuring Africa to invest its limited financial resources in growing its fossil gas extraction and export business, particularly for European consumers, in order to achieve energy security following Russia's invasion. Chancellor Olaf Scholz of Germany stated during a 3-day visit to Senegal last month that his country intends to intensively pursue projects to develop and import Senegal's vast gas reserves. In fact, Germany has been particularly reliant on Russian gas. So now Europe wants to bind Africa with new fossil fuel infrastructure that will be obsolete in a few years, not to mention detrimental to the region. And, lest we forget, African gas will produce the same amount of emissions as Russian gas. Furthermore, there is also a knife edge in the balance of power between fossil fuel interests and the interests of leapfrogging into renewables. Last month, the Sustainable Energy for All Summit in Kigali, Rwanda, issued a communiqué supporting Africa in the deployment of gas as a transition fuel. But only 10 out of 54 African countries signed the statement. However, according to Mohamed Adaw, founder of think tank Power Shift Africa, the majority of African nations recognize the tremendous opportunity that renewables present for job creation, innovation, reduced air pollution, and sustainable industrialization. But this majority is a silent majority. They have not yet leveraged their moral voice to make a case for a cleaner, sustainable Africa. As much as this is concerning, renewable development is already happening across the continent. From Morocco to Kenya, renewables are providing a brighter future, but for a truly continental response, trillions are needed to engineer a rapid transition to renewables. Africa must consider the security of long-term investments. This is the most expensive continent in terms of obtaining credit or loans. In addition, the continent must implement payment guarantee mechanisms supported by international financing in order to encourage safe renewable energy investment. However, public funds are still required to leverage international investment and finance. Unlocking Africa's internal resources, such as public funds and sovereign wealth funds, is essential. There's also the problem of debt to consider. It may have a major impact if Africa could swap some foreign debt for the kinds of investments it requires. Some even desire wealthier countries, which are having a far greater impact, to pay off a so-called climate debt to the people they have hindered through emissions. Whatever happens is going to be a major tipping point for the future of both Africa and the whole world. Hopefully, the nations across this vast and diverse continent can come together through unified ideals to propel this rapidly growing giant into a world leader in green energy.